Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the ongoing Indian military siege of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So we'll be talking about that, about the current situation that prevails there. But before that, let's have a look at this report.
Despite all the atrocities of the belligerent regime of Narendra Modi on the defenseless Kashmiris in terms of direct violence as well as through blatantly tearing apart all the international laws, including international humanitarian law and the resolution of United Nations Security Council, the Kashmiris are gloriously paying homage to the young freedom fighter Burhan Wani on his 5th martyrdom anniversary. On this occasion, the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Masood Khan, urged the United Nations to stop the state terrorism unleashed by occupying forces in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In Modi's terrorist-tinted regime, the atrocities against defenseless Kashmiris have aggravated exponentially. According to the Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons and Jammu and Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society in Jammu and Kashmir, there were 8,000 enforced or involuntary disappearances in 3 decades, and the ratio of these disappearances intensified in 2017 and 18. In Modi's regime, the extrajudicial killings of civilians in Indian-occupied Kashmir increased with every passing year, with 53 killings in 2014, 160 in 2018, 80 in 2019, above 32 in 2020 and 57 in 2021 up till now. Foreign Office spokesperson Shahid Chaudhry told that during a recent meeting between the Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Secretary General and the Indian ambassador to Saudi Arabia, the former had underscored the organization's principled position on the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Earlier, in November 2020, he categorically rejected India's unilateral actions since 5th of August 2019 and demanded India to withdraw its illegal actions and respect the inalienable right of the Kashmiri people to self-determination as promised by numerous United Nations Security Council resolutions.
Now, to talk about this, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us Altaf and Wani Saab, Kashmiri leader, with us in the studio. Thank you so much, Wani Saab, for your presence. And we have been joined in on Skype by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja Sahaba. She is an expert on foreign affairs, an author, writer. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahaba, for your time as well. And we have with us Ambassador Shahid M.G. Kiani Saab, former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Kiani Saab, for your presence as well, sir. Since we do not have much time, but I would really like you to comment from this very important point, and that is about the meeting that was held in India, and Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, along with his most important men, I would say, whether it's the Foreign Affairs Minister or the Internal Affairs Minister, Ajit Doval, when he met the Kashmiri leadership, which included 4 former Chief Ministers, including Mehbooba Mufti. Then we had Umar Farooq Saab and his father as well. But having said that, sir, the Hurriyat leadership was minus. They were not present. So what do you see the outcome of this particular meeting and how do you see it moving forward?
You see, first of all, the Modi did not meet the Kashmiri leadership. It was the so-called collaborators who in past, for last 73 years, they are their elders have been collaborating with the Indian occupation authorities in Kashmir in order to cement the Indians' illegal occupation occupied Kashmir. But the meeting which took place between them, that meeting, the outcome of that meeting, as we know, was that Modi wanted to legalize all those illegal actions which the Indian government has done for the last 2 years in Kashmir, especially after revoking the Article 375 and 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution, and then enacting so many laws in order to change the demographic of Kashmir and to make Kashmiris homeless, landless and jobless, and to get more and more Hindus to the Kashmir, and in order to softenize the Kashmir. And the net result of that meeting was that India wanted to have the delimitation of the assembly constituencies in Kashmir, and after that to have the elections in Kashmir. And that is also applied by the Modi government to increase the seats in the assembly, that legislative assembly of Kashmir, in order to give more seats to so-called scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and also create some constituencies for Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir, and that by to decrease the number of Kashmiri Muslims in the assembly, in that so-called assembly. This was the total outcome of that meeting. And this also says one of the failures of the Modi government, that it was this government, when they put all these people behind the bars on 5th of August, said that we will end the family rule in Kashmir, we will have the development in Kashmir and all that. The Modi government has failed in Kashmir. Kashmiris put a very brave resistance, and they are putting it, and that forced Modi to go back to those stooges of Indian occupation again to bargain with them. But we have to see and wait and see what will be the net result in coming days. I can't comment on that, what will happen after.
But that is something which really worries, I think, Pakistan. It worries us also as Muslims, as supporters of the Kashmir cause. But coming to you, Dr. Saiba, now, a very important issue that has been mentioned by a guest in the studio, Mr. Wani. We've been talking about the demographic changes that have been made over a period of time. Land has been sold to non-Kashmiris, and then the issue of Pandits for that matter, the major demographic changes all over the area, and now we're hearing about the delimitation issue. Obviously, that is something which is of prime concern, because this is one of the most important tactic in order to win the elections. You know, you change the overall demographics and the presence of people there. Dr. Saba, your take on this issue?
If we see Indian or India's policy in Kashmir since 1947, if you see that the Jammu massacre of 1947 was also an effort to change the demogralities of Jammu and Kashmir. And at that time, those radicals were quite successful in changing the demography of Jammu region and turning it into an Hindu majority region. But we all know that Jammu genocide by Hindu radicals is one of the most least reported or genocides of the history, and it is one of the most volatile and brutal genocide in contemporary times. So India knows that this is how they can affect the Kashmir conflict, and we all know that India tries to follow Israeli model of occupation. Changing demographic realities is one of the lessons they have learned. So definitely India claim that that is why they abrogated
Dr. Saiba, can you hear me? Hello?
influence the right. So, in
Dr. Saiba, your voice is breaking up. I'll just make sure that, the connection between the studio and you should be clear. But let me also bring in Shahid Kiani Saab into the debate. Now, Shahid Saab, we have always feared one thing, and that is we all knew that at some stage the demographics would be changed, and now we are hearing about it. So many people have been given certificates. Now the Kashmiris' land isn't safe, their lives weren't safe earlier, and the kind of changes that are made in Kashmir perhaps really reflect the kind of mindset the Hindutva regime has. This is pretty worrisome. I want your take regarding the diplomatic point of view, sir.
Mr. Altaf Wani, my friend, has already spoken about the changes being brought and the demographic changes being brought. They're holding elections. They bring more non-Muslims to the Jammu and Kashmir election assembly, and then slowly and steadily they will change. And then they the BJP already has a majority in Delhi, so they will just buy the time. The meeting which Prime Minister Modi and his national security advisor held with was the collaborators. And let me tell you, all these four chief ministers as I said, a khushi time. They were living in their own houses. They were not incarcerated like putting them in the jail. They had servants to look after them. So they have, in a manner, believe it or not, they liked it because the 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 Kashmiris in the occupied Kashmir were braving the Indian security forces and they were being incarcerated. These people were having a khushi time, these collaborators. So I don't want to talk about them. The fact that what is now happening is that I think, yes, it's been 5 years since that young Wani, sacrificed his life. But let us look at the future. The spokesperson spoke very well about the meeting which took place between the Indian ambassador and the OIC Secretary General. But what is OIC now? OIC been diluted. Most of the members, the important members, as already have relationship, strong relationship with India and with Israel. Israel is a collaborator of India. So now, then the global dynamics have changed. The OIC members, most of them have relationship with Israel, and then the most important, on globally, the sole superpower United States has has ignored the atrocity which is taking place in occupied Kashmir. Prime Minister Modi is going to United States in September. I don't think this issue will ever be brought on the table. So the problem is the dynamics, global dynamics are such in which where do we where do we go? Most for us, for Pakistan, the most important thing would be to raise the human rights issue in the European Union and the most important the Western capitals in the parliaments, in the media. This is what we need to do. We continue to raise the voice because the human rights violations have not ended. They continue, and so otherwise this issue will die down. You will see that in the next few years, Modi or no Modi, even the next government comes will not reverse what they have done in 2019. So this is a sad situation. The global dynamics are such which are not favorable either to us or to the Muslims in the occupied Kashmir.
I want you to respond to that point, sir. That is very important. In another few years, things would change. The ground realities would change. No matter what we do, whatever we have done will go in waste. And the most important factor is that when you talk about 34 lakh fake domiciles, sir, I mean, just imagine another 34 if they are given. Total dynamics are changed, demographics are changed, and then one should not cry that, whatever has been done has been done. Then forget about Kashmir. Your take, sir.
It's true that we have been always crying about it, that Indian mechanization in Kashmir, Indian ply in Kashmir, the way they are changing the demographics, the way they are implementing their policies, they are implementing the Hindutva policies in Kashmir, they are softnizing Kashmir, they are now creating more and more places for Hindu pilgrimage in Kashmir. They are constructing 50,000 temples. They have the program of constructing 50,000 temples in Kashmir Valley. So according to official records, there were only 438 temples in Kashmir. Now they are constructing 50,000 temples in Kashmir. What does it mean? It means to change the religious landscape in Kashmir. Religious landscape in Kashmir. That's what the Indian government is doing. What we need to do, what we are doing and we ought to do, you see, as Ambassador rightly pointed out, we have to raise this issue at each and every level. And what the Foreign Minister was recently talking to the media, that we have now moved from the politics to the what we say, the economics,
from
geopolitics to geoeconomics.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very nice idea. But at the same time, we should not forget the geopolitics. We have to be very vigilant in the geopolitics.
India is doing the same in Kashmir, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, they are doing
That's what
the same.
I'm saying. Yeah.
As so far, at least at this point of time, even if Indian government has issued, as per the Deputy Home Minister of India, they have issued 3.4 million these fake domiciles to the non-Kashmiris, but none of them has so far been able to come and settle in Kashmir.
And what is the reason for
Indian government, I'm going to that. Indian government did sign almost 200 MOUs with different multi-million companies in India in order to invest in Indian-occupied Kashmir, but none of them has come to Kashmir till date. That is the resistance the people of Kashmir are putting. Even today, you heard that 4 of our youth were killed in a fake encounter.
Correct.
2 days back, one guy, he was branded as the senior most commander of Hizbul Mujahideen by the Indian police, and IGP is on record that he was kept alive, and then while going somewhere, he took his Kalashnikov and fired. And that is a fake encounter case. Likewise, 3 days back, Mozam, a young cricketer, he was killed in a fake encounter. And so what Indians are doing, on one hand, they see the people, the resistance of people of Kashmir. Now they are targeting each and every voice. Earlier,
Every household.
and then brand them as terrorists or militants or what they call them as separatists. They brand them like that. But you see, on each and every day, the Indian policies, if you have listened to Indian maybe defense minister or Indian chief of army staff, every year he will say from last 4 or 5 years that there are 200 militants in Kashmir, and at the end of year they say we have killed the 200, now there are more 200 militants in Kashmir.
They multiply. They will keep on multiplying.
They are making it, they are multiplying it in order to serve their purposes, in order to address the Western countries, in order to Western capitals, as if there is a cross-border infiltration, as if there is terrorism happening in Kashmir. Whatever is happening in Kashmir is indigenous. This we have to promote internationally, along with the West image of Pakistan. We have to promote that whatever is happening in Kashmir, whatever has been said in the international newspapers, opinions from last 2 years, that everything in Kashmir is homemade. It is not coming from anywhere. So that is the indigenous movement of Kashmir. So Kashmiri people are putting a resistance. Indians did not find new stooges in Kashmir. They tried it in last 2 years to have new leadership in Kashmir to serve their purposes, but they failed to do it, and they were forced to go back to those people who earlier were their collaborators. So this is the situation in Kashmir. People will put up the resistance, but the responsibility lies on people, on we people. The responsibility lies on government of Pakistan, the people of Pakistan, and Kashmiri diaspora living abroad to put more intellectual input in their argument in order to convince the international opinion makers, international media, and international policy makers in order to make them realize about the human catastrophe that is taking
I think that
place
should be
in
the key
occupied
factor
Kashmir.
which can be talked about, and that is one very important issue that has to be highlighted, I guess.
Yes.
Now coming to you, Dr. Saiba, another very important factor, because whenever you talk about the Western narrative of terrorism, mostly the Muslims are blamed for it. Then we end up hearing this concept of Islamophobia, and then we got to know that even in the Western world, no such terrorism is taking place. Is perhaps either because of the Islamophobia issue, or when you look at it from another perspective, it could be an individual's act. Now, ma'am, do you believe that this so-called war on terror in Afghanistan is almost over? The Americans, they have gone back. Now, this narrative has that kind of a strength that it can still be, used. Those freedom fighters, since they are called the terrorists, you believe that phenomena could be eroded, and they should be considered as genuine indigenous people, who are striving for their life, for the betterment of the families, and especially for the region where they're living, because this is their region.
Yeah, I believe that India would leave no stone unturned to delegitimize the freedom movement in Kashmir, to delegitimize the right of Kashmiris to self-determination through using or through exploiting all those weaknesses of Western mindset. So it is maybe our duty to tell the world that whatever is happening in Kashmir is result of the Islamophobia demonstrated by Hindu majority and Indian government against Muslims and against Kashmiris, because Kashmiris are an ethnic group, and Kashmir is the largest, like only Muslim majority state which is being occupied by India. So definitely India would use, because these are the terms which are saleable in West, and West is extremely sensitive about that. So, but it is our duty, because West is also sensitive, apparently sensitive about racism. So it is our duty to disseminate or to create a narrative that whatever India is doing contemporary political ideas which are flourishing and highly popular, or general populism in India, that is the white racism, that is the Brahmanism, that is the superiority of a certain religion, because and that too people of certain complexion, they are considered superior than the rest. So if Islamophobia and terrorism, all these are the weaknesses of the West is also very peculiar or very sensitive about racism. So yes, India would definitely, and when we see the trends or the modus operandi of Modi regime, how they operate, that is mostly like 99% is based on propaganda. And Modi, for example, India's COVID response policy is known as a failure across the globe, because you know that international media had highlighted this issue with the statements like India gasping for oxygen, and all those, they represented the misery of common Indian, because which he
All right, ma'am.
suffered because of the flawed policy of Modi. But Modi made sure to make his public believe that Modi's COVID response policy is the best, and that is in India's favor, and
All right.
so that people should vote them in next election.
All right. Now, Ambassador Saab, last couple of minutes, hardly 2 minutes are left. I just want you to, in fact, guide us and tell us what needs to be done now. The demographic changes, that's a reality. You talk about fake domiciles. Yes, sir, that is a reality. You talk about delimitations. Yes, sir, that is a reality. Do you believe that the concept which we have always adopted, that the moral support is there, the political support is there, the diplomatic support is there, is that enough, or do we need to change our strategy towards the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? If so, what needs to be done now, sir?
We have continued to raise our voice since the Article 370 was abrogated, and nothing has happened. And I have been saying on these programs that a bipartisan delegation of members of parliament of Pakistan should visit these important capitals. I understand COVID-19 is a problem, it's an obstacle, but as soon things improve, and then mainstream newspaper people from Pakistan should accompany, along with a group of foreign office people, should visit the western capitals, sit across to the parliamentarians, sit across them like EU and the Australia, United States, Canada, where human rights is an issue, is a sensitive issue, and share with them what's happening here. Let our narrative be accepted, because other than that, nothing else can be done. We have fought wars, wars have not resolved this issue.
Correct.
But the Moody's narrative should not be accepted. Our narrative should also be as strong as theirs.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Saab. And I'm so sorry we did not have much time. But thank you very much for your comments. It was a pleasure to have you, Dr. Saiba, as well. And thank you so much, Wani Saab, for your presence, sir. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care. Allah Hafiz.